Okay, good afternoon to you all ladies. I can see we have about 83 participants on. I'd like to welcome you to the first session of the Female Future Program webinar. And we are pleased to have you register and join us to our evergreen session this afternoon. So today is our first virtual engagement, and thankfully, a great start to a virtual connection through the larger network that's with Uganda, Tanzania, Ghana, Tunisia, Norway, and of course, Kenya hosting. Our housekeeping rules for today, as we start, is to ensure that all our mobile phones are either on silence or silent mode, or alternatively, that we switch off our devices. Kindly keep your microphone on mute throughout the meeting, unless you really need to ask a question, and you can also put your hand up. Our session is on for the duration of the hour. And I now welcome our Executive Director, Jacqueline Lugo, who is our Secretary General of Business Africa, the voice of employers in the African continent. She's also an elected member of the governing body of the International Labour Organization, ILO, and Management Board of the International Organization of Employers, and serves on several national boards globally. There have been enough awards and recognitions, and in 2015, she was listed by Jeune Afrique amongst the top 50 most influential women in Africa. And in 2018, she received Africa Economy Builders Award. She's the first African woman to be elected twice as the Vice President of the International Labour Conference in Geneva, Switzerland. She's a lawyer by profession and an advocate of the High Court of Kenya with an expertise in labor laws and practice, governance, human resource management, and leadership. And she loves inspiring people and spreading hope. And I think at the Federation, we are very happy to be led by our Executive Director. So, Mrs. Mugo, we kindly welcome you to this session. And karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Mary, for your warm introduction and for arranging this session for us to come together as Female Future alumni, participants, and friends. Good afternoon to everyone, wherever you are in the globe at this time. I want to welcome each and every one of you very warmly to this first session of virtual interaction, which may be a feature of our lives going forward. We're also pleased to have our guest speaker, Tor Philip, who will be talking to us today. And I also saw Tori, who is a long-term friend of the Federation. Philip will be speaking to us today about leadership at a time of pandemic, what remains evergreen. And yesterday I was looking at the word evergreen, which we all know, and it is something that is ever renewing, never changing. In Kenya, Female Future was started immediately after Uganda, so we are the second country in Africa to have started this program to develop the women in our country to move to leadership positions and take up the leadership roles in every sphere of life. And also it came immediately after the Kenyan constitution was changed. So that provided space for us to do that. And we're really grateful to Tori and the entire NHO team for making this possible. We started in the year 2012. As at now, about 298 women have gone through this program. They've either joined or they've graduated. And we've been tracking their successes and wanting to know what changes have happened in their lives since they've gone through the program. And we are very happy that the reports that we receive are good. Many of these women have gone ahead to achieve that which we wanted them to achieve in terms of moving on to senior roles, taking on board level positions. Many have got promotions in their workplaces, and a few of them have even become CEOs since partaking in this program. So for me, who is an alumni of Female Future, this is the only thing Mary didn't say. We are very proud of you. We are very proud of your achievements. And even for those who are still undergoing the class, we are proud of what you will become and are becoming already. Because the minute you step into a Female Future class, you realize that your life is changing and you have opportunity to understand yourself better. In many areas, some of the alumni of Female Future have actually started their own enterprises. Many of them are in manufacturing, some have won awards, and again, congratulations to all of you. But many have developed at a personal level where they have built confidence to move on to areas that perhaps were not brave enough to do before. So at personal level, there are successes all around. Some are very happy about how they are now able to lead, they understand their teams better. So Female Future is about you taking charge as a woman to pursue your life goals and your career goals. So for some, there may be no promotion, but really the way you work, the way you serve, the way you carry out your enterprise is different. It is always very fulfilling for us to hear the phrase constantly repeated that says, I wish I had known about this many years ago. I would have been miles ahead by now. So many women on coming to the class realize that this is a life-changing experience. So this tells us a story that, for one, the self-development story never changes. It never ends. It's a life journey. We can achieve whatever we set our minds to do, and we can win, for me, with God's help, because you can't do it alone. So we are coming together because there's a pandemic that has forced all of us to stay home, to work from home, and to work virtually. So our lives have changed, and we've been talking about it at the Federation and realizing that some of these changes may be lasting, but it will end. So whatever we've been forced to become and the new strategies we've adopted should be a lesson for us, that they should provide a platform for us to make some necessary changes, perhaps in the priorities and how we've been using our time, getting a little more balanced in line with that being example that we do in the Female Future class. And also it's about us being disciplined and committed to be the best that we can, even during this tough time. So let this experience with COVID-19 not be wasted, but let it inform who we even become, and so that we can be even better in the years ahead. So I think what Female Future is offering will be helped with by COVID-19 itself, because it has made us dig deeper into the real person of who we are, as we've had more time to reflect, to maybe slow down a little, because our lives have been very fast. And I believe that we will have an opportunity to rise and to excel authentically, using your real person, your whole person as a woman, so that there is no area of our lives that is sacrificed. And we all know that Female Future also makes business sense. And for us, the platform that we are creating today, this virtual interaction, I hope is the beginning of many similar interactions, so that we can share ideas and share learnings with one another and from each other, and together build each other up. So let me, without further ado, hand over the floor to our speaker, and we welcome him very much as we discuss leadership at a time of a pandemic. What is it that never changes? I said hi to Tori earlier, and we will be looking forward to hearing from you, Tori, about the alumni network that you have been planning with the coordinators. So as we say here in Kenya, karibuni sana.
Well, thank you very much. And also thanks for the introduction, Edie, and also thank you so much for the invitation. It's such a great thing to be here at the Female Future Alumni. I think this is probably the first time you do it like this anyway. And I can tell you right now, there are 146 participants listening in to this meeting, which is, I would say, an accomplishment. So to Mary and to your colleagues all around Eastern Africa, well done. I might have met some of you on my travels to Africa the last 4 or 5 years, but I would say that probably most of you don't know who I am. So here, my name is Philip. I am in my house in Oslo, Norway. So now you have a view into Europe as we are now engaging in this dialogue. I know Female Future very well. I think also I have been working with all the at least Eastern African federations throughout the last couple of years. And right now I'm going to talk about leadership in a pandemic. I know that leading people and leading organization, that has always been a challenging and a very complex task. Now, our leadership collectively and individually has really been put to the test lately, just since this very February. So if I noticed this in my line of work. I'm a consultant, and my clients and organizations I work for, they approach me now with different sets of problems and different sets of projects than they did only 3 months ago. First and foremost, I noticed that board of directors and executive teams, they ask me to help evaluate their effectiveness through this particular period. Also, they need to sort of rephrase and restart their own team by redefining the new normal. Leading in a pandemic might take a very long time to deal with. That means that they have to find a way that pandemic is basically the new normal, at least for some time going forward. And also I can notice that the need they have in terms of individual support is increasing day by day. So I notice this the way I work. I have been invited to talk to you about leading in a pandemic, which is, of course, a tricky topic. Who knows how to deal with this situation when it's a novel situation? How do we go about this? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about 3 things to you. First, I want to look into what were we as leaders concerned about before the corona started. That means a few months back. Secondly, I want to spend some minutes on just looking at the consequences of the corona so far. And finally, I want to spend time on what is most important in my presentation, namely giving you some advice with respect to how to deal with it as leaders. So to the headline, leading in a pandemic, what remains evergreen? There might be some things that I'm going to give you advice on that might be evergreen, and some things that might be particular for this very situation. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to share my screen and I will allow you to see my presentation, and I will take myself away. So you can see this instead. And hopefully you are able to see what's on the screen right now. And if Mary could give me a thumbs up, then I would know that the presentation is good. Does it look good? Okay.
Yes, it
Very
does.
Good.
It does.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So let's start then. In way back in the good old days. When was the good old days, everyone? Well, I think that was approximately 3 months ago. What organizations, what leaders and board of directors, what were they occupied at that time with? Well, they were occupied at making strategies for VUCA. You might have heard about VUCA, or you might be tired of VUCA, but VUCA in this here means volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Every leader just 3 months ago were working with this. How can we make decisions when the world is such a volatile place? When every decision we make is made more or less on an uncertain basis, we face ambiguity, and the world is such a complex place. 3 months ago, this was on top of every strategy document I was working with, at least. Also, leaders spend time on dealing with what we call the global megatrends, such as the demographic shifts. The population of the world is getting older. Furthermore, the shift in economic power from the traditional economical strong countries such as the US, UK, Germany, typical Western European and also developed Asian countries, now to more developing countries, both in your continent and also in Asia and Latin America. Furthermore, making strategies on how to deal with a market that is getting more and more urbanized. Of course, climate change has been on top of most people's and leaders' list for some time now. And of course, as well, the technological development that we see every day. This was also something every leader was very much concerned about dealing with just a few months back. The pace of change is now much quicker than before. And this is also something that was really important before the corona to deal with. Look at these statistics, that only 12% of Fortune 500 companies are still on the list 61 years later, now in 2016. And the life expectancy of a firm of Fortune 500 was 75 years ago, before. Now it's less than 15 years. Of course, this must be on the top of any executive's list. We were making strategies, and you know charts like this. Before Corona, we spent time on making strategies on how to deal with the market, identifying the competition, executing plans, and managing performance. I am curious, how many strategy plans did include a pandemic? How many strategy plans were really trying to deal with the global situation where the entire world is being affected by the same virus in such a short time? I suspect not that many. And finally, before Corona, we were concerned about leadership. How do we lead when in VUCA times? How do we lead? What does it require from me personally and from my team to deal with these trends and to make a strategy? This is the world as we knew it. And then 3 months ago, at least in most parts of the world, it came to China and from China before, but in February 2020, this virus arrived to most continents and the world has completely changed. Look at this. 3 months later, these are data from today. There are registered, keep in mind, registered 4.9 million cases globally. 320,430 deaths are being registered and almost 2 million are already recovered. So this is increasing by the day. Let's take a look at some of the consequences this has had for the world during these 3 months. Look at the markets. These are just 3 examples from the respectively Japanese and the US market stock prices. They have plunged in the period from February until April and slightly start to recover, but as you can see, they are still on the minus side of the bar. And it will take time to recover. So it's a massive financial shock for the world, what we're seeing right now. Furthermore, these are just US numbers. Look at the graphs, how the unemployment rate is increasing in the US. And as you can see, it has been stable January, February, March, and then all of a sudden in April, it skyrockets with more than 30 million people in the US have filed for unemployment benefits just the last 6 weeks. Also, a marker of the global productivity has to do with Chinese production. Look what happened in China in January, February, March, keeping in mind that China was hit by the virus very first. And that's why we can see the development of China already from January, February as a negative growth. More than 100 countries have travel restrictions because of the coronavirus, which leads to the fact that there are hardly any flights in the sky. I, at least on my hand, I now register keeping my eye on the sky if I hear a plane, because it's so unusual. Approximately 65% decline in airline travel, and most of the airline travels right now has to do with repatriation and cargo. We don't really fly people anywhere at the moment. And this is a disaster. Just 2 days ago, Emirates considered cutting 30,000 jobs and cutting out this massive Airbus 380 planes on a higher speed. As you know, Emirates is one of the largest airlines in the world, and but on a more domestic scale in Europe, we are facing massive job cuts within the travel and airline industry. But what happens when people travel less? Well, they do like we do right now. They meet online and virtually. So look what's happening with Zoom, for instance. The share price of Zoom has increased over the last 3 months with more than 130%. The same goes for entertainment, such as Netflix and online shopping as Amazon. So if you invested in Zoom or digital technology like this or Netflix shares before the corona, you would all be rich at the moment. At the same time as the corona, the oil price hit a 20-year low just a few weeks back, and which then is a barometer on how well the world economy and trade is going. Obviously, the demand for oil is much less now because of the pandemic, and we also have some oil producing countries disagreeing. Nevertheless, it leads to a record low oil price if we look approximately 25 years back, and this highly impacts the global trade and also the global welfare. So we can see this is these are countries in the developed world primarily now facing a recession this particular year, and the recession is of course a serious state for most countries, and it will take time to recover. So the consequences of this virus just in 3 months has put the world upside down, and it's a massive test of corporate leadership. Because there are so many leaders. I have been working for a headhunting company for quite some time now, and I know for a fact that there are many leaders running companies with a very short tenure in their role, meaning that they have never really dealt with a crisis before. So they are really unprepared on how to deal with this. So it remains the question, how can we lead in such a situation? What should leaders do when facing such a crisis in the company? And that leads me to my main part of my presentation to you, which is how can leaders help their organizations? I have 8 quite practical advice for you. So let's see. Advice number 1, lead with calmness and humbleness. These days, there is an intense pressure from investors. They require information, they require plans, strategies to mitigate and reduce financial massive losses. Your employees, customers, suppliers, and so on, they are going to look up to you as a leader to project a sense of calm through this difficult and uncertain situation. Also, your employees, they don't want to know how much the virus has cost your organization. Workers want to feel in the same boat as the boss. People need to know that even though the leader is employed to run the business, she is still a human being, someone that cares and understands. So you as a leader have to stay calm and also humble to the fact that we don't really know where this takes us. Secondly, of course, you have to be calm and humble, but not still water calm. You have to project confidence that you will see this through successfully with a minimum amount of hurt to the company and to the stakeholders who are relying on your leadership to get them through the difficult days and months ahead. Also, leaders have to be agile. And agility is a buzzword, ladies, that we hear all the time. But this means that not only to change plans and work schedules, but even changing your own leadership style. It is likely that different leadership styles will be needed as the year progresses through different stages of the virus. Right now, I would expect and believe that an affiliative and a participative leadership style would be appropriate. Affiliative leadership has to do with creating harmony and to promote friendly interactions. Being affiliative, meaning that you put emphasis on the employees' needs more than their goals and their performance, and that you have to pay attention to the whole person, not just their professional person. Being a participative leader means that you need to build commitment. Trust that the employees can develop the appropriate direction of the work for themselves. And you have to hold a lot of meetings to listen to their concerns and to involve the employees in decision making. And being agile then means that if you are affiliative and participative at this very moment, then it also means that you have to change when the virus situation changes. So later, when it's more recovered and we're through this situation, you need to change your style into being more pace setting and directive, even commanding. So pace setting has to do with making your employees really accomplish their tasks, the one they're set to do. And you have to lead by example, you have to set high standards, and there's actually not very much sympathy for poor performance anymore. And also you want to be directive at some point, where you give orders saying, run fast, keep up, and here's what we need to do. So going from the current more affiliative and relationship-oriented style later on to the more pace-setting and even directive style. That means agility in this case. My third advice to you has to do with leading through transparent communication. So you have to communicate and communicate. You have to communicate quickly and clearly to be in front of potential issues rather than to counter misinformation. Rumors are so unproductive and dangerous. I want to show you, this is what I found just Googling rumors of coronavirus in Africa, where people have tried to fact check the statements from either in the news or the government, where the president of one of the participants countries here in Tanzania, the honored president, he says that if you inhale very hot steam, it might kill the virus. Well, that's misleading. It might kill the virus, but it might kill you as well. Because it's highly, highly dangerous to inhale 100 degrees Celsius of water, and they have already seen people doing it, and they harm their lungs for life. So this is an example of a virus. Furthermore, in Nigeria, there are fake news regarding, they put pictures up of Chinese areas that are being burnt down, and this is just made up. So rumors are spreading. That's why we need to lead through transparent communication. Silence is, of course, the worst thing that you allow to happen, because that allows such rumors to develop. Communication from the leadership always need to include, here's what we know. This is what we know about the situation, about our business, about the competition, the market situation. Here's what we don't know. And it's fair to not know things right now. We are all in the same boat of not knowing everything. And finally, here's what we're trying to find out. So information, communication from you as a leader should include at least these three bullets. So leading through, being transparent and open in your communication. Fourthly, my advice to you has to do with lead through collaboration and engagement. I mean, you're not going to know all the answers. No one knows, and no one expects you to know everything. This is a time for you to call on the resources, all the capabilities of your employees, everyone in your team, all your members, and bring them together in task forces, sub-task forces, and potentially have a role for everyone in which they can feel that they can contribute to overcome the uncertainty, overcome this crisis. Engaging employees like this both ensures commitment to the organization during this period and also reduces the harmful rumors we just discussed. So collaboration and engagement is important. And to build upon that, my fifth advice has to do, you have to reinforce the organization community and culture in the virtual space. All of us, we live in communities, and our organizations are in communities. We have to lead by example, both within the organization and in our broader community. We have to model a behavior that are community friendly and supportive. Internally, within our organizations, we know that very many of our colleagues, they thrive on the social aspect of work. You know, the water cooler talk, the coffee machine talk, hanging around like these people in the picture do. And this social dimension now disappears when so many more people are working from home, as many now do. Research we have accessed shows that productivity can decrease when workers go remote. The sense of belonging and commitment, it could fade away, and even the informal control mechanisms are gone. Meaning that, so where is Mary now? Where is John? Where is Fred? Have you seen so on and so forth? All of these mechanisms are gone when people work from home. So as a leader, you actually need to be in daily contact with your staff in this period of time. You need to use collaboration tools like we do right now. Zoom, Teams, FaceTime, WhatsApp, whatever you use, but you need to use them. And if you don't have any tools like this, you simply have to call your people to check in and hear how they are. The tricky thing, of course, is to try to translate your office culture to the virtual work. If you're used to having meetings at work, well, then you should continue to have meetings virtually. If you're used to having social events, coffee, like people do in my part of the world, they have like a monthly lottery where you can win a cake or a bottle of wine. Well, try to do it virtually. Try to translate the community and the culture to the virtual space. Not to forget that still your people have the need for a social life and to belong in a community. Just keep in mind, everyone, that when you are virtualizing your work, you need to keep IT security in mind, of course. Right now, there are so many crooks out there trying to benefit from the pandemic situation. So employees should be taught about technological phishing, as it's called, digital fraud, digital hoax, and how to react to emails from unknown senders, how to open attachments and so on, because this may harm your company big time if they have the lack of technological competence. So reinforcing community and culture is important. My sixth advice to you is back to the heart again, to lead with compassion and care. Compassion and care is very important at these times. There might be many people in your organization that are depending on you, and they might not be as resilient as you are yourself. They need to be given the compassion to express their concerns. You may have team members with old parents in a fragile state of health, and they're going to be worried about their parents, and they might be worried for themselves as well. Compassion, care, and support is very important in a time of a crisis. And it's your role as a leader and your responsibility to show compassion and to show care. My seventh advice has to do with something completely different. Cash is king, you can say always, but obviously cash is king in a time of a crisis. So as a leader, you have to do all in your power to keep the business running effectively and safely. Everything you do needs to be done to reassure both short-term and long-term financial health of your organization. After all, your employees, suppliers, and customers are depending upon you to lead, not just emotionally, but also with respect to the long-term finances of the organization. Whatever you can do to conserve cash is going to be critical, because that's going to determine whether employees will get paid next week and you literally have a business to go to. So you need to lead with commitment to profitability, ensuring cash flow, which is of course hard. My final advice to you, and this is also, I would say, something that people tend to forget these days, is really important. You have to lead for a time beyond the time of the virus. You need to prepare for change. Because even in a time of a crisis, there are winners and losers in business. You want to be among the winners, right? And you want to be in the club of winners, and you have to prepare for the time after the virus. I think if you're only dealing with the present, you may lose in the long run. So already now, at this very point, in the middle of the crisis, leaders need to look for opportunities. There might be ideas, there might be products, and there might actually even be companies that can help you recover faster. You should dedicate people not only to deal with the current present crisis, but to look for opportunities and possibilities in the future. Interestingly enough, a pandemic like we are facing right now can expose a firm's fundamental internal weaknesses and flaws. So why don't we, if we have them, why don't we just fix them now and use the opportunity? This is our burning platform. This is what we need. So let's take some examples. There might be some internal silly procedures that you just keep on doing and you don't know why, and they're just taking down your effectiveness. There might be company inflexibility. There might be meaningless processes. There may be pointless controlling and signature procedures internally. There may be bad incentives. It may even be toxic behavior among your employees. Now is the time to fix it. Prepare for whatever comes next. Many organizations actually realized all of these problems even before the pandemic, that they should do something about it, but they just didn't. Now you have a fantastic opportunity. This is your burning platform that can take you to the future. Interestingly enough, many organizations right now, they know for a fact that what got them to the current state financially, organizationally, won't necessarily take them to the next level of success. So this is the time to prepare for a change, asking a very, very simple question. What can we do better than we do today? How can we use the pandemic to evolve? This could even include governance or organizational structure. So in short, prepare to change while we are in the middle of the crisis. 8 advice from me to you. I made an effort in trying to make it easy to remember. So then I found that everything could actually start with the letter C. So as a leader in a pandemic, you need to stay calm. At the same time, you need to show confidence. You not forget to communicate and work to enhance collaboration so that they feel that they belong to a community. Make sure that you show compassion, never lose sight of profitability and cash, and prepare to change. All the C's. And by that, I want to say thank you very much, guys. Thank you. I leave it to you, Mary, to facilitate some questions or short discussion.
Sure. Thank you very much, Philip. Good to see you, and thank you so much also for the notice of the 8 barometers of the C's, the confidence, the calmness, the commitment, the cash. But however, there are a few questions that I'm asking in regard to the last 2 slides, where they say it's a very difficult balance between point 6 and 8. So I'm sure we can go back to that presentation and check on the points between 6 and 8 in your
6 and 8,
presentation.
let's see.
Yes.
Let's see.
This participant is actually from Kenya, and he's saying it's a very difficult balance between point 6 and 8.
Let's see what 6 and 8 is. 6 and 8 would be compassion, right?
Yes.
And 8 would have to do with change.
And commitment.
So you mean 6 and 7? Or
6, 7, and 8.
6, 7, and 8, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so now it would be great to be in a room together with you. Then we could discuss it together. Mm-hmm. But if I understand it correctly, there might be some sort of a dilemma or a paradox between leading with compassion and care, making sure profits, and at the same time prepare for the future. And that's true. Usually, even before the pandemic, I spend a lot of time teaching senior leaders and senior executives about leadership, what that means when it comes to navigating paradoxes. And this is such a paradox. This is an example, and we'll find many examples of paradoxes in leadership. Another could be, you have to be in front, at the same time you have to be able to lead from the back. You have to be humble and you have to be confident. So there are paradoxes all over the place in leadership. In this particular case, I think that care and compassion, that is to me an evergreen. You have to do this always. But care and compassion does not mean that they should not be pushed to perform. Care does not mean just kindness alone. Care means also expectations. So I would say that together with, showing compassion and care, and also commitment to profitability. This is what leadership research tried to explain back in the 50s and 60s, when they said that leaders need to focus around the task. They say task-oriented leaders, and also around the relationship-oriented leaders. So, and this is actually the very research that was done in leadership research field 50 years ago. Leaders need to manage both. The task, meaning creating profit, making customers happy, and also to do it in a way that creates engagement and to facilitate relations between the people that you lead. And also, of course, between themselves and you. So you're right, it is a paradox and it is a dilemma, but this is an eternal dilemma. This is not new because of the pandemic. It may escalate in the time of a pandemic, but it's not new. What I agree on is that it's challenging to lead for a time beyond the virus as the third sort of corner of the triangular just described in the question. The funny thing is that this also can refer back to quite old leadership research, where they say that, yes, leaders need to be task-oriented, meaning focus around profitability. They need to be relationship-oriented, meaning showing compassion and care. And also, leaders need to be change-oriented. And this is the last C, change. So I would say that this triangle, task, relation, and change, that is the core of the leadership evergreen. Completely understand and acknowledge the fact that this is hard, but this is the task we face as leaders and we need to deal with. Yeah. You need to unmute. There we go.
Thank you very much. Questions are still coming up and I'll still be able to ask you. One Bernie Sam says, how can leaders themselves be supported to exhibit those attributes, especially for the leaders who are task-oriented?
How can leaders be supported?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no doubt that that this is actually a very good question. Let me try to simplify, and with the excuse of having the time limit that we have. I would then point to three solutions. First and foremost, in these times, human resources department has a role to play. Very many companies have an HR person or a function or even a department, and they are very often quite process oriented. We need to have proper HR processes. HR need to step up, being more supportive in terms of leadership support going forward. So this is really putting HR to a test, but you should be able to rely on them. Secondly, what we call peer-to-peer support or peer-to-peer coaching. This means that executive leaders should find, or could at least find, some peer in the management team. It could be a person inside the organization or outside the organization, also serving in a similar role, where you can share open and honestly your problems, and you can have some sparring, like a shoulder-to-shoulder sparring. And the third one would be get a mentor, not a coach necessarily. A coach, you may know the difference, but for those of you who don't, a coach would typically ask questions without giving any advice. A mentor would give advice. In these times, I totally agree with the question. Leaders need support. That means that they sometimes need advice, not just a bunch of questions. So I say that if you can find a senior person that has been facing complex and challenging situations before, a mentor could work for you. So use HR. You could use a peer serving in the same level as yourself, more or less, or you can find yourself a mentor. Those would be my three top of my head advice when it comes to getting support.
Fantastic, Tor. I think we're getting on very well. I'm really enjoying the conversations, and I'm already enjoying the pat in the back for you. They're very good comments here, and keep it up. So just to motivate you a bit, someone says this is a great presentation, and they like the way you have broken it down into the 8 points, so it makes it easier to understand. However, we have a question from Uganda, and the lady Angeline is asking, is basically, I think she's just putting in her input and saying the other challenge is managing the change in culture. We know that culture has been one of those things that makes people have their own way of working in silos. At this particular time when we have the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, how easy is it to manage the culture? Is it a point where people can swim in easily? Is it a divergence? Do we come together? I mean, what do you see with the whole idea in terms of changing culture during these times? Is it easily adaptable?
Angeline, that's a good question. And I have, as you hopefully know, beating heart for my friends in Uganda. So managing culture in a pandemic, it's hard. Managing culture outside a pandemic or when it's normal circumstances is also hard. So I would say that this topic is a big and a very demanding thing to work on. So it actually leads to a headline question: how do I facilitate, or how do I develop a culture in the company I am responsible for, at least a part of their leadership team? How do I work with culture? And we could then spend a few weeks together and we can work on that topic. But if I was to give you only one advice, culture has a tendency to trickle down from the top. Meaning that whatever behavior the senior leadership shows, not tells, but shows in practice, has a tendency to influence the culture to a large degree. So if you want to change or enhance or reinforce the culture in your company, always start with the man, or in this case, the woman in the mirror. Start with your own behavior and model the culture that you want to have. You need to somehow find ways to incentivize. I'm not talking about money, but just attention to the people promoting the culture that you want to have, and to somehow find a way to not necessarily punish, but at least do not accept behavior that is in direct contrast to the culture that you want to have. I do understand that this sounds a little bit tabloid right now when we only have a few minutes and we have such a huge topic as culture on the table. But if I was to ask you to keep one thing in mind, always start modeling the behavior yourself as a leader, and then it will over time trickle down in the organization. Keeping in mind, of course, that working with culture is a long-term project. It's not something that you change overnight. What we do see, though, a pandemic such as the one we're facing right now could be used as a lever to change culture faster. As we see now, we actually change behavior very, very fast these days. People don't fly overnight. So I mean, that's an example, not a cultural example, it's a behavioral example. People accept to stay at home. They accept not to travel with buses, with trains, things like that. So behavior could be changed faster when facing an external threat as we are today. Yeah.
Wow, thank you very much. You know, the thing is, as it gets more inviting, you want to spend some more time explaining. Unfortunately, time is really running out, but it's really been so lovely having you. I'm sure everybody is just wondering how we can get in touch with you. We'll be able to share his contacts anyway, and we would actually like now to let you know that we'll be able to share the presentation. The video will be shared to all of you. We'll be able to answer your questions in a different forum, not today, but we'll be able to answer them together with all the coordinators. I did not introduce all of them, but I'm sure we can all identify our individual coordinators. And we actually would like to continue engaging and to further up our virtual network through these kind of conversations. So right now, I'm just going to say thank you, Thor. I will bring in Tori. Tori is our international development partner from Norway, who's going to tell us more about the Female Future Network and the alumni, which we want to really engage and fast track. Now that we're a global community, we're many of us, I'm sure we'll hold each other's hands, we'll find mentors, we'll find people to talk to, call on. So Tori, you're on the floor right now. You can probably tell us about the International Female Future Network. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary, and good afternoon to everybody.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for organizing this webinar, to FKE, to Mrs. Mugo and Mary and everybody. Also, thank you very much to Philip for a very interesting presentation. I think we all enjoyed it and we could pick up something from it. As you know, the employers' organizations from all countries present today, from Norway, Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania, Tunisia, Uganda, we are all running Female Future training and programs at the moment. And we are very proud, like Mrs. Mugo was saying, we are very proud of all the results and achievements that these programs can refer to. We think, or we have a plan, that the national Female Future networks should be organized into an international Female Future network. So actually we planned to launch an international Female Future alumni in Oslo in March this year. But unfortunately there was an outbreak of the pandemic, the COVID-19. So the launch and the visit to Oslo had to be postponed. But we are not giving up, we are just changing. And we want to launch the International Female Future Alumni, which we call the IFA, in a new webinar, and hopefully maybe during June, a couple of weeks' time. And then we will invite you all. So the intention behind the International Female Future Alumni is to establish an international network for personal growth, motivation, career support, peer-to-peer learning, sharing experience and knowledge. And we also want to encourage and to help increase women in boards, more women in boards and management positions through both national businesses, but we can also support to the international businesses. And I think we also, this group can also try to influence the gender policies. So we have already established an International Female Future Alumni LinkedIn group. So the Female Future coordinators in each country will invite you to join this group. And in this LinkedIn group, we can share experiences, invite each other for different seminars or meetings or whatever. So I'm very happy that so many people, I think around 180 people, ladies, have joined us for this webinar, which is the first of several. We will, of course, invite you to more webinars, I think. As Tor Philip was saying, we need to change. We need to move quickly, and we want to change, and we want to see a stronger female future. So thank you very much, everybody, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Tori. So Tori has been basically trying to cook up something with the International Female Future Network. We will be getting in touch with you. Any questions, please get to us, and we'll be glad to help you and tell you more about the network. So now as we complete, I'm afraid that we've not been able to answer all the questions, but I can tell you that we'll be able to get back to you. And I would quickly want to acknowledge my other coordinators from the different countries. So if you could please raise up your hands. We'll start with Uganda, where my journey in the Female Future program began. We have Fatma. Fatma, you can raise your hand up. We have Anna Bahati from Tanzania, our Female Future Coordinator in Tanzania. We have Yvonne in Ghana, our Female Future Coordinator there. And I am not seeing our team in Tunisia, but I'm sure they're somewhere. So wherever she is, I'm sure she'll raise her hand. So thank you all very much. I'm going to invite our Executive Director to say Kwaheri, and thank you for participating in this particular seminar session. And we hope to engage further and have more of this. Thank you very much. Mrs. Jacqueline Muku, kindly get on again.
Well, thank you very much, Mary. It's been an exciting 1 hour listening to that illuminating and very informative interaction from Philip. For me, my takeaway is that in times of crisis, it's all about leadership. How you inspire people, how you give hope, because people need hope. And yet, as a leader, you have to keep your eye on the bottom line. You have to look after the cash. You have to collaborate. And you have to ensure that you survive beyond today. And that's the challenge facing many employers' organizations. How will we survive beyond COVID-19? But I think Philip has given us some tricks to help us wade through these deep waters. And we can, I think, say as women that we are good at being agile. We're always balancing pots on our heads. You're carrying firewood, you're carrying a baby. In the working world, you're juggling being a mother, being a career woman. It's possible, and there is help. I'm very happy to hear, Tori, that you are launching this alumni network, and that we'll be able to keep talking, because I think women love sharing and love networking. And it's very good to know that we have each other to rely on so that we can keep going and even use this crisis. That's what Philip has said, to prepare for a better tomorrow, because it is pointing out to us the weaknesses, the opportunities we have for improvement. And even here at FKA, we've realized there are many things we're doing, we don't need to be doing, and we need to do differently. So it's a learning process, and let's continue sharing ideas. Hi, Fatma. It's very good to see the two of you from Ghana and Uganda. The other two from Tunisia, I have not met, but you two I know. So from us here at FKU, have been very privileged to host you. It's been very exciting to have you all get involved. I think we can answer some of the questions maybe online even after this particular session. And we look forward to the launch of the network in June and to our next virtual engagement. So as Mary said, let me be obedient. Kwaheri ya kuonana from Kenya. Goodbye, take care of yourselves. Please keep safe.